Hi Blender fans and welcome once again to Blender TC. In this tutorial we're going to actually be making two materials. We're going to be making a metal material and a wooden material. They're a bit cartoony but they're quite useful in their way. First of all, we're going to actually create a hammer. So first of all, I'm just going to scale this cube. In fact, I'll just go through some of the quick keys. G will move our cube around, Control Z will undo. So G and X will move along the red line, G and Y along the green, and of course G and Z top to bottom. Up here on the top line, if we go in edit mode, pressing the tab key, I'm just going to Control Z just to actually put that back in the center. Pressing the tab key will take us into edit mode, and this gives us point select, line select and face select. In point select you can move a point around, Control Z. In line select you can move a line, G, and Control Z to undo. And of course in face select you can actually move a face around by pressing the G key, Control Z to undo. And of course E will extrude, S will scale, and you can quickly make shapes by just extruding and scaling and extruding and scaling like so. And Control Z will take us back to our cube. For this tutorial we'll be actually using the cube, so I'm just going to scale the cube up in the X direction by pressing X, S, then X by 1.5. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode by pressing the tab key, select that face, and then hold the shift down and select the alternate face. I'm now going to extrude these by hitting the right button, and I'm going to extrude along the normal. The normal is the actual flat face, so if we extrude along the normal, then it does this. And then what we can simply do is actually scale them down, Control Z. Before I do that though, what we've got here, up here, we've got a thing called transform pivot point, and what we set to is the medium point, which is the center of the cube. But what we're going to do is actually make this to individual faces, or individual origins, and that's denoted by these two rings with the two dots in. And then just scale that down. There you go. Oops, scale it up slightly. And I'm just going to move the faces S by X. But of course, because we're not in the medium point there, it's not doing it around the center point. So S, then X, and that'll allow us to make our shape of our hammer. I think that's a bit short, so I'm just going to freeform and just scale this in the X direction until it's about where I want it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to bevel some edges. So we've got this edge here, and if you hold the Alt key down and select that edge and select edge, as you can see it's selecting all the other edges when you press the Alt key down. But what we want to do is select those edges, and keep going round until we've gone all the way round our hammerhead. So what you do is hold the Shift key down, the Alt key down, and then you select the edges. Unfortunately this doesn't show up in the key finder, but what I'm pressing down is Shift, Alt and left clicking, and as you can see that's now selected all our edges. And what we need to do now is bevel these edges. So if you right click and you put bevel edges, this will allow us to move our mouse button down until they're in the desired point, which I think is about there. Now what I'm going to do is actually select that edge, hold the shift down and select these edges. I've selected the wrong edge there, so I can deselect it by selecting it again. There we go, and I'm just selecting all these edges, and if you hold your middle mouse button down, that allows you to orbit round your model. So go into individual origins, and we're just going to scale these down and scale. We've now got our hammer head shape, And that's as far as we're going to actually go. And this is where we're going to put our metal material when we're finished. So next thing we need is we need a shaft or the handle. Hit cylinder, scale by pressing the S, Z to do it in the Z direction, and we'll just scale it up until it's about the desired length we want. And then if we actually press the S key and just scale it down, and that I think will do for our hammer shaft. So G and Z just to move it above this point up here. I don't need this bottom face because it's going to be hidden inside the hammer, so I'm just going to delete it. Pressing the X, and then you can actually fetch this delete and hit face. So next, E to extrude this, E to extrude in the Z direction, Control Z to undo, E and then Z and Z until this purple line thing, which will lock it into place. And I'm just going to scale this down. E and Z and S to scale, and G and Z until the purple line appears. I'm just going to round the top of my handle. Right. With this selected, right select, and we're going to shade smooth this. And as you can see, we've got some distortion. It's a bit hard to see it there, but we have got some distortion on the top. And the way to actually get rid of the distortion, in fact that's absolutely rubbish, that. I'm just going to re-centralize that by pressing the G key and just re-centralizing it. And E and S to scale, and E and S to scale, just to give it a flat top on our handle. Right, Control R, I'm just going to put a loop cut there, Control R, put another loop cut there, Control R creates a loop cut, and what I can do is just select these edges here, scale it up, just to get that kind of shape. And what I'm going to do is actually Control and R and move my mouse wheel up until I've got 3 cuts, just like, make it 4 cuts, just like that. Pressing the 1 key means I'm looking now from the front, so I'm just going to actually select select face select this time, and that's the central line because it goes through the blue. And I'm going to select a ring there, and I'm just press the X key and delete the faces, and then do the same on the other side, which will make a hole through our handle. I'm then going to select this point here, here. In fact, I won't do that. I'm just going to do it a different way. So holding the Shift Alt key down, select that face there, then press the Shift key down while still holding the Alt key, and select that one on the far side. If we then right click, what we can do is we've got another menu that actually comes up, and we can bridge edge loops. So now we've bridged edge loops, which actually puts the lines through our hole. As you can see, we've got some distortion here and here, so I'm just going to add another loop cut just to sharpen the edge on there, and I'm going to add one on the internal faces on either side of this hole. Control R just to finish that off. And finally, what we'll do is we're going to actually make this into a round hole quite simply by grabbing this edge here with the Alt key and the Shift key and going all the way around it. Do that again. Alt key, Shift key, Alt key and Shift key. Go all the way around. And what we need to do is grab all of these edges, so Alt and Shift. Keep going round. And the inner face as well. Alt and Shift. And up here, what we've got under mesh, we've got a thing called transform, and this is to sphere. And as you can see, we're getting too much distortion there. I'm just going to Control Z that, and pressing Control and A, go out of edit mode, pressing the tab key, Control and A. I'm just going to apply all transforms or rotation and scale, which should actually sort some of the actual geometry problems we're having there. Now we'll try that again. Vertex, in fact mesh, transform to sphere, and this time it should work a little bit better. As you can see, that line there is too low, so I'm just going to GG just to move it in itself and take it down below. So I've done our handle with our hole in it. I'm just going to put another loop cut there just to sharpen things up. And all we need to do now is subdivide it by pressing the spanner or wrench, add a modifier, and the modifier we'll add is subdivide surface. And as you can see now, we've got our handle of our hammer, and G and Z just to move it down into place. You want to make yourself a cup of tea, Mummy? It's alright, I'm just, you know, it's alright, I don't think I've got enough time to do this anyway. I'll just make the hammer and I'll make the materials later, if you know what I mean. I would have to record this in 2 sections, I think. I'm just going to scale this S and Z. Just scale it just to make it a bit more. S and Z. Just to make it a little bit more chunky. G and Z. Just to move it down. And it's entirely up to you. As you can see, there's some distortion there. So Control and R. Make a loop cut there. Just to sharpen things up. And make one on the other side. Just to sharpen up on the base. I'm just going to break off there because my missus is making a coffee. Well, Fizz is in the house. I know. Well, I just let her out this morning. She's gone back upstairs now, hasn't she? Has Fizz fetched something? She's looking for something.
I don't know.
Yeah, better cut all this out when I've edited it.
Are you recording still?
Yeah, finished. Making the hammer at the minute. I might get it done just before I go to work, but I don't know. Oh, it's Delta variants going around, but I think in Russia it's the Delta, not the Omicron, isn't it? As long as we get it done by Wednesday night, or 12 o'clock Wednesday night, I'm not bothered. Just haven't put one out for such long because of this COVID and the chest infection, so I can't speak very well. COVID pneumonia, I think they call it. Right, back again. Right, the only thing I'm going to actually add now is some decoration, which I'll do that towards the end. In fact, and a loop that I'm going to actually use for the handle. So I'm just going to add in a mesh, and the mesh I'm going to add in is a circle. G and Z. Whenever you create anything, it's actually generated at the origin point. So I'm just going to G and Z, move this up to where I want it to be. Hitting the 7 key, I'm just going to G and X just to move it across. And looking from the front, G and Z just to move it down. Just to put it in about the right place, G and Z. And going to edit mode by pressing the tab key. A to select all if it's not all selected, until it goes yellow. Go on line select, and E and Z just to move it down. And then hit the spanner or wrench, add a modifier, and we're going to add a solidify modifier and just give it a bit of thickness here. Let's have a look. So, bit of thickness, and because we're still in edit mode, I'm going to select this edge here. Just that edge there, and what I'm going to do is add in go into this upside down triangle, and we're going to add in a vertex group. So press the plus key like so, and then assign the vertex group. And if we come out of edit mode, we're going to use that vertex group later on Just let me Control and R just to put a couple of loop cuts in there, just to give it a bit of definition. And back into our spanner, and we're going to add in a subdivision surface modifier, and then shade smooth it just to give it a bit more shape. So there's our handle for putting our hand in. So what we need to do now is actually make it look more like the handle. So what I'm going to actually do this with is actually I'm going to use a physics property and a cloth, but what I'm going to do is we're going to actually use that actual group that we actually created earlier and select the group, which will lock that point solid. And so if we actually now press the space bar, as you can see, our loop falls straight down, but of course, as you can see, it's going straight through our handle, and that's because there's no collision properties on our handle. So with the actual physics settings still selected, hit collision, and then when it goes back to the actual front, as you can see, we've now got our handle that's straight down the side of our, let's give it a name, let's just call that rope handle. Might be just a piece of leather or something like that, but so rope handle. I'll get to a point where you like it. So I think I like it quite there, just there as it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply all these modifiers and get it to a point where you like where it stops. Which for me is there. And I'm just going to apply that, so that actually locks it into place now. So we've now got a material. It's entirely up to you. It depends how you want your ribbon to look. You can also add pressure, which will add the thickness to this because it'll blow it up like a balloon, if you wish. But I think that is for me just about where I want it to be. And next thing I'm going to add is a bit of decoration. So apply and apply.
Lastly,
and what this I'm just going to add in is a simple mesh. I'm going to add in a cylinder, but I'm going to change the actual number of faces on this cylinder to 16, and then I'm going to scale it in the Z like so, and G and Z, just move it up. I'm just going to scale it down because I want a bit of decoration on my hammer handle, like some gold rings. So I'm just going to select that face, just move it around by using my mouse. Select the bottom face, extrude along the normals, scale down. Select medium point up here, just actually, and extrude and scale it down. Shade smooth, and what you can do is add a few loop cuts here just to sharpen some edges if they wish them to be sharp. Control R, Z, let's try that again. Control R just to sharpen this edge. And lastly, what I'm going to do is add in with this selected, go into the edit mode, select face select, press the Alt key down, select this ring, and I'm going to go and select, and I'm going to select checkered deselect, which actually by default selects every opposite number, and I'm going to I and I just to actually inset. That's what the I key does, and then extrude along the normals to make me that kind of shape. And then I'm going to add go on the spanner wrench, add a modifier, subdivision surface modifier, once and twice, just to make me a little ring, decorative ring there. So G and Z just to move it down, and Shift and D just to duplicate it, and G and Z till the purple line appears, and I'm going to put 2 rings there. So I've quickly made my hammer and my handle or shaft, the handle and my decorative rings. Next, what we're going to do is add all the materials in. So we're going to add the brushed metal into there, the wooden texture, and of course the gold for our rings. Right, Blender fans, so now we've actually created our Thor's hammer. I still can't remember what they called it. I know it begins with M, but here it is. So let's start adding some of our textures. So the first texture we're going to actually add is going to be our metal texture. So if we actually select the base of that hammer, what we're going to do is add a texture to this, and we're going to actually put new, and we're going to call it metal. Oopsie daisy, METAL, because this is going to be our metal texture. So we're going to simply make this metal texture, and we're going to make this in our shading tab. So I'm just going to shrink this down just to actually give us a bit more room, and I'm just going to move that over there. Right, to start our texture, we're going to actually need it to be metallic, so we'll actually increase our metallic just to make it nice and shiny. We haven't got our sky texture in. I'm just going to actually add our sky texture, and let's just add in our background, add in a sky texture, and we're going to select the Hosky Wilkie and just move it up slightly just to give our scene a bit of light, just so we can actually reflect this. And this is actually just giving a simple sky texture to our scene in our render field, and this is the actual viewport shading. So it just actually means that we can actually reflect things. I'm just going to add in a mesh, and I'm going to add in a plane. I'll just scale this up just so we've got something to actually cast shadows on. G and Z. There we go. As you can see in this, our sun is somewhere over there in the sky because it's casting a shadow over there. Right, so we're into our shading. I'll select the hammer, and we'll just move this over to one side. Right, so we've actually made the metal, we took that up to we'll put that at 0.9, which is quite a good metal. I will take the roughness down to 0.096, which will make it a very shiny material. Next thing we're going to add in a bump map. So add, and we're going to search for bump, B-U-M-P. You can find these 2 different ways. You can add a bump texture, because if you actually look under these fields, once you get used to where things are, you'll find out that the bump is under vector, and you could add it in there. But alternatively, you can just search it. I'm just going to actually connect the normal to the normal, and I'm making sure this is set at 1, and this is 1, which is the default. And the next thing we're going to add in is we're going to add in a Musgrave texture. So add in, like I say, you can actually type in Musgrave, but I know that's under texture, so we're just going to put that into Musgrave texture, and we're going to put the height to the height. And as you can see, we've now got this kind of shape on our hammerhead. I'm just going to leave these as the default as well, 5, 2, 2 and 1. And next we're going to add a thing called mapping. Can't remember what mapping's actually under, to be honest. So I'm going to type that in. So mapping, and as you can see, mapping appears. Click on mapping, and we're going to connect the vector to the vector. And now what we're going to do is add one more field, which is the texture coordinate. Add group. I'm sure it's under one of these. Vector now. Color. Texture. Nope. Shader. Is it under output? Is it under input? There it is. It's under input. So put texture coordinate. So what we're going to do is actually connect the generated into the vector field like that, and as you can see, we've now got this kind of shading. We've got different pieces, so it's like got a flat shader there which is not reflecting anything, and then you've got this other piece that is actually reflecting through there. So let's just alter some of the actual values. So we've got that stayed the same, that stayed the same, and this is going to change slightly. So I'm just going to change that to 1.7, and I'll change the Y to 88. And as you can see, we've now got that brush metal look there. And if we actually change the Z value to 88 on the other direction, as you can see, now we've got actual brush metal in different areas of our model, which I think you'll agree looks quite good. And if we actually put this into cycles, which we should get an even better effect, because then we'll get proper sort of reflections. As you can see, we're getting a reflection of it there. Just change it to GPU to make it calculate faster, and I'm going to change it back to Eevee. So we've put that 88 in there, so we've got our metal texture, which of course you can use on all sorts of different things. It's quite good on the base of plates and things like that, and the brush texture can be used on all sorts of things. The next thing we're going to do is create another texture, and we're just going to actually put this onto the handle, and let's add the texture. So new texture, which we're going to call wood. Now this texture is set up pretty similar to the other one, but it has some slight differences. So we're just going to add in a bump map again. There we are, bump map. So this time we're adding a bump map, and we're adding in a color ramp, which is found under the converter. So adding a color ramp, and adding a Musgrave texture again. Texture Musgrave. Put the bump down there, and of course we're going to add mapping search. MAPP. I don't know why I've got a blank spot for mapping, but I always have. And obviously texture coordinates. So add. Where are you? Somewhere near the top, the texture coordinates. I can never find some things. I can't find it. Ah, there we are. Input texture coordinates. So let's start connecting some of these. So we've got the vector, generated to vector, and we're going to actually put vector to vector, height to height, oh sorry, height to factor, color to color, and we're going to put the alpha, also no, we're going to put the color also to the height, and we're going to put normal to normal. As you can see, that's already making a two-tone color, and all we're going to do is add some more bits and bobs. So let's just move that up slightly. So I'm just going to change this to a brown color, so I'll turn it brighter, and it's going to be a quite a lightish brown. And in the center here, we're going to add another color, so plus that, move it over there, and we'll change this color to a dark brown. So brown, dark brown, and this final colour will turn it to like a lightish yellow, yellowy orange. And move that in slightly, and maybe add in another colour there, so plus, and maybe another dark brown. Click back onto it. So got something that looks a bit like wood, and let's start altering some of the. So we're going to change the strength to 0.6, and I'm going to change the scale on here to 16. The detail also to 15. No. The dimensions to 17. And I'll leave that where it is. Also here in the actual scale, I'm just going to change that to 2.3. And as you can see, I'm making a bit of a cartoon wood. Won't be very comfortable in your hand. And all we need to do now, I'll just move these over so we can actually look at them and focus on different things. And lastly, what we're going to do is actually increase the metallic just to make it a little bit more shiny. Oh, sorry, not specularity. Increase the metal just to make the material a little bit more shiny. And as you can see, now that looks like a gnarled wooden texture. I'll just change this to the same wooden texture just to give it a bit of definition. No, it don't look very good, so I'm just going to change that to its own colour, and we'll just make it a pretty simple brown leathery look. And finally, one new colour, and we'll make this into gold. So double click, GOLD, and gold's quite simple, so we're going to make the metallic up to the top, take the roughness down to the bottom, and just change the colour to this orangey yellow, or a colour that's more like gold, as you can see in your viewport. And for some reason it's gone a bit weird. Just focus on that one, add the gold to that one as well. I'll call it Golg. What's Golg? GOLD. And if we just duplicate that one once more, Shift and D, just to give it, and G and Z, and I'm just going to have, just to simply put that there. Just move that up, G and Z, just to move it up slightly. So there you have it. We've done ourselves our. All we need to do now is actually apply all modifiers, apply, apply, and apply. Right, the woods, and apply. I'm just going to smooth that out. Subdivision surface modifier, and just apply that. Just actually smooth it off that little bit more, just to give it that light material look. So there you have it. You've got like a cartoon wood texture with dents in it and cuts. You get you quite a few splinters, I think, from that, but you get the idea. You've got the golden rings, and of course the metal look on the hammer. If we just go back into modeling, and there we have it. And to finish this off, what you could do is add an HDRI, just to get, so you actually get some of the actual reflections like the trees in these, just to actually get that proper gold effect. But it's entirely up to you. If I just actually add a quick HDRI, I'm just going to get rid of the sky texture. New. Environmental texture. Open. Select your HDRIs that you've downloaded from HDR Haven. Like me. Let's get something weird, bit of wood and trees on just to actually reflect the light. As you can see, we've got a goldy colour with our Thor's hammer, reflecting the trees. It's like a cartoony hammer that you'd sometimes find in some of the low poly games. Thank you for joining me on Blender TC, and if you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, hit the like button. Bye for now.